us now to discuss is pollster and communications strategist Frank Luntz. Frank, thanks so much for joining us. I always love having you on because I learn a lot from what you're learning from just talking to so many voters. And I wonder if you'll just start us off with where you see and what you're hearing about this moment in this race.
I take this very seriously, and I'm actually prepared for this segment. And some of the things, half the people are going to be angry at half the things that I say. The issue agenda is set. It is going to be, and it's not the economy, it's affordability, it's prices, it's costs. That and inflation are the two key issues. Those are going to drive this last 23 days. And frankly, Donald Trump has the advantage on both. And on immigration, the reason why he wants to talk about immigration is because the current president, President Biden, and Vice President Harris seem so weak on the issue. I will raise this point carefully, that to the average American, calling for the death penalty for someone who's here illegally, killing a cop, is not insane. It's not abusive. It's exactly what the left, the center, and the right would call for. That Trump, and I realize that he's gone off the rails in some of his statements, and you can replay them to your viewers right now. But there's a reason why he's going up and that he's recovering after one of the worst debate performances in modern history. It's because he is speaking the language of the average American, and she still isn't coming clean about where she stands on some issues and what she's all about. And it is a genuine problem for her campaign. And I understand why Democrats are getting frustrated, because there are key groups right now, Latinos, young African-American men, and union members that are traditionally with the Democrats that aren't in this campaign right now.
And on that note, Frank, we've seen recent polls showing Harris's support among black men is lower than certainly where Biden was. I know you hosted a focus group with black men who are supporting Trump. I want to play a clip from that.
The reason why I'm voting for Donald Trump is because simply I want to make America great again. I think the last 4 years we have seen over-promising without a plan. What I watched on the debate stage were a lot of lofty goals from a Democratic candidate who's been vice president of the United States for 3 years and 8 months, and nothing that she proposed, she or spoke on, she had a plan attached.
That's so interesting, Frank. Give us some more context around that conversation you had.
It's not that they're pro-Republican, because they aren't. But Donald Trump reaches them in a personal and a human way. They feel victimized by the federal government. They feel like they're attacked or even persecuted for being black men. And they believe that Donald Trump understands their plight more than Harris does. That this challenge, this economic challenge, this social challenge, this racial challenge, they see more in Trump's language and his willingness to fight and beat the system. They see more in themselves in that fight than they do in Harris, because they see her as representing voters who maybe they don't work, maybe they're of a different gender, but it's not who they are. It's the same thing with union membership, where the rank and file absolutely are moving towards Trump at the same moment that the leadership are overwhelmingly, maybe 90%, endorsing Harris. And among Latino votes, you have that schism as well, where it's not what he says about illegals, because if you're here legally, you agree with what Donald Trump is saying. I know this is blowing people's minds right now, but I want to emphasize that this looks to me just like Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016, where voters woke up the next day to a Trump presidency. Harris is miscalculated, she's miscalibrated, and it's causing damage to her campaign.
So we're 3 weeks out from Election Day. Early voting started in some places. It's about to start in others. Is there time to recalibrate for Harris, in your opinion?
Absolutely. The best example is when asked, does she have any differences with Joe Biden? She says no. The first thing she should have said is, on the border, I do disagree. I do think that we've made some mistakes, and here's how we're going to correct them. but she's not willing to do that. Hillary Clinton played it safe in the last 28 days of the election, not engaging with the press, not engaging with voters, and Harris is doing exactly the same thing, and it's going to have the same impact if she doesn't change that strategy.
And my other thought here is just, we talk a lot about persuadable voters, people that still could go back or forth. Some theories of the case are there really aren't many of those anymore. It's about turning out your voters at this point. But because she is in this unique position, Harris, being still so fresh in this race because of this wild campaign season we've had, it seems as if she's still defining herself to people. And Trump, as we just saw in that clip that Elena played leading in here, is still desperately trying to define her as well.
He's unplugged, for better or worse. He's speaking what he truly believes, for better or worse. And some voters, undecided voters, are turned off to that because they're turned off to that rhetoric. But he's actually speaking, I say this as clearly as I can, he's using language on prices and on immigration that the public responds to. It's not insane. It actually is a majority of Americans. And the Harris campaign so disagrees with it, so disagrees with the strategy and the policies, that they are miscalibrated to how to win them over. And one last point, it really isn't the undecided right now. I accept that. Those people at 3 or 4% probably won't decide. They will probably stay home, or they'll vote for a third party or write someone in. The key now is turning out your partisans. She has the most incredible, intense support among young women, 18 to 30, but Trump's vote overall is damn well determined to vote. They will stand in line. They will do whatever it takes. And even in that intensity, at this moment, he's got a very, very slight advantage.
And just before I let you go, I do want to touch on something that continues to bear out in a lot of this polling. And I would imagine, you'll tell me, in focus group as well, but this gender gap that we keep seeing show up again and again and again. What are your thoughts on that? And give us some nuance around it, beyond just there's a gender gap.
That is the question of this campaign. That's going to be what historians focus on. She has driven female vote to incredible levels, and particularly younger women. Trump has done the same for older men. So you have this conflict, and it is not just about issues. It really is about attributes, how Trump presents himself and how Harris presents herself. She is a role model for younger women. Trump is saying and almost screaming exactly what older men feel. So this is going to be a problem. Here's the issue. I'm afraid that we're not going to know who won this election on election night, and we're not going to know the next night, and we're not going to know even the night after that. CNN and organizations like yours need to start now communicating to the American people exactly how they're going to cover the campaign if we don't know for days. Because in the end, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, those are the states that make up the election. 4 of those states probably won't have their votes counted for days. And the level of anger and division in this country is so high that we need to figure out how to deal with it now, before the election happens.
Yeah, it's a good point. I just talked to the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro, last hour and asked him about that very question, and asked him about being prepared for disinformation campaigns and lies, and then just the anger that I think you're probably seeing in a lot of people who are deeply frustrated and angry.
Well, that's exactly it. So let's start addressing it now before it's too late.
All right, Frank Luntz, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it too.